stunning looks than swift.
Australia reigns supreme in Ahmedabad. Australia are champions of the world again for the 6th time in Ahmedabad. They have outplayed, outthought, outsmarted India. They've won the big moments and they've won the game that mattered. They've won the final comfortably in the end by 6 wickets. That after Travis Head put in one of the great performances in World Cup cricket for all time. He's now joining a rich league of players to be player of the match in a World Cup semi-final and a final. And he had to weather the storm of Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami. At one stage, the Aussies 3 for 47, and we thought we had a game on. But Travis Head with 137. Manas Labuschagne, what a story that is. Not part of the original squad. And there at the end when the winning runs were scored. 58 not out. Together they shared a partnership of 192 that blew the wind out of India's sails. That after Pat Cummins put Rohit Sharma's team in spite of the typical Rohit blaze at the start. India just could not get going to the gears that they wanted to on what was a difficult track in the first innings, but 240 was just not enough. Australia win by 6 wickets. Spare a thought for Rohit Sharma and this Indian team who had one defeat, and it came on the night of the final. They end up losing less games than the eventual champions, but well done to Pat Cummins. After losing the first 2 to India and South Africa, they peak at the right time and they continue the rich legacy of Australian cricket teams at Men's World Cups. On Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. We look back at the emotions that come through on a night like this. For India, a heartache that an Indian great like Anil Kumble can understand of this present Indian team. Tears that we see in the final moments. I'll get a comment from Anil in a bit. But let me go to Tom Moody, who's tasted World Cup success in India. The first time it happened in 87 and it happened again in 99. Tom, put into perspective the significance of this Australian team beating India in a final and winning this World Cup. Tom.
Yeah, this is an enormous win for Australia. Australia, as you quite rightly said, have now won 6 of these World Cups in this format of the game. And I think this is as good as any of them. To win away from home, this day and age, to win against this Indian side, which I believe is as good as any side India's ever put out there. And they showed that throughout the whole tournament. They just dominated and wiped the floor with most teams in this tournament. Is a significant moment. There was a lot of criticism. The microscope was on this Australian side right from the get-go. They lost their first 2 games. There's a lot of criticism around the captaincy of Pat Cummins, whether he was the right person to be doing the job, whether he was the right person to be in the playing 11. There was even talks around his position in the team. But he showed resilience, he showed leadership, he showed the ability to learn on the ground and grow as a leader. And his game just went from strength to strength along with his captaincy. Australia will remember this one very fondly because there's a huge amount of respect for this Indian team and what Indian cricket is doing at the moment. And they know how difficult it is to win in India. So this one will be, right up there amongst all of their great achievements over recent years.
I mean, they've played their best game, or they've saved their best game, Anil Kumble, for the final, because this team had its hiccups. It almost stumbled its way through to semi-final qualification. But what a game they've played today.
Yes, they have. I mean, thoroughly deserving Australia today. Congratulations, Tom. I thought India would probably have the 11 wins in a row, but unfortunately not. But Australia perhaps played their perfect game today. India played 10 perfect games, and today wasn't their day. So, yes, in a tournament like this, you sort of look for that 1% improvement in every game that you play, and then you're hoping that you will end up playing the perfect game closer to the final and in the final. And today, Australia certainly showed that. With the ball, yes, they took a brave decision at the toss to field first, and with the ball, after the start that India got, they sort of held their nerve, bowled in the right areas, outthought the Indian batting, and restricted them to 240. And it, once they lost those 3 wickets early on, We certainly believed that it could get closer.
Yeah.
But Travis Head and Labuschagne ensured that Australia just breezed past.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories to unravel here. The story of Travis Head picked in spite of injury and just set the World Cup alight as soon as he regained full fitness. The story of Marnus Labuschagne, who, like Tom Moody points out, along with Pat Cummins, there'd be enough columns that you'd read in Australian cricket media or opinions from Australian players who just do not believe he makes Australia's best team, and yet they've been instrumental in their team's 6th World Cup title. But let me also get a comment at the top for India. India have seen the other side of this. For the older fans or those who've read up on the 83 World Cup win, you thought that was a huge upset, that final, because the West Indies were expected to continue their dominance. And when you saw India's dominance, it matched the 2003 and 7 Australian team. How do you deal with this kind of result, knowing full well that you played the better cricket throughout the tournament, but just not on the day of the final?
Yeah, it's very, very disappointing. You know, you obviously want the final to go your way. The start was great. We've seen throughout the tournament that the start was similar to the rest of the matches as well. What was perhaps the difference here was Shreyas Iyer at number 4, because number 4 and Virat Kohli generally got a partnership in the last 3 or 4 games. Whenever India batted first, India started batting first in the last 5 or 6 games, and in all of those, Shreyas Iyer has contributed. Of course, Virat has consistently contributed, and Rohit and Shubman Gill at the top have given India a good start. Today Shubman got out early, but Shreyas Iyer's wicket certainly put the brakes on that partnership that that Virat and Rahul sort of had to build or rebuild the innings from there on.
Yep.
That's where I thought Australia took the game away from India, because they bowled in really good areas, made it really tough for the batters to sort of score runs, because the pitch was certainly, at least what we saw, the taller bowlers were getting that much more perches off the surface. Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, it was not easy. I thought, since the pitch was like that, we felt that when India bowled, perhaps the spinners would get more turn, but there was hardly any turn on offer. I thought that line they bowled made it difficult for both Rahul and Virat, and that certainly put the brakes, and eventually India didn't get a score that they could defend.
It seemed like such a well-thought, well-prepared Australian team for what is to come on the day of the final. Tom, is this, as you often point out, a coach's delight or a team management's delight with how Australia were the difference when it came to winning more moments?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, everything fell in place for Australia. They won the toss. They did what they wanted, what they wanted to do, and that was bowl first, even though there was a lot of criticism around that decision. I noticed on social media there was even some of our most senior cricketing experts were very critical of that decision, but they chose what they wanted to do, so they thought through that very carefully. They brought the energy in the field. They executed perfectly with the ball. They read the conditions and bowled to the conditions and set fields for those conditions perfectly. And then after an early setback or an early 3 strikes, when Australia were 3 for 47, they had a player at the top of the order that stepped up and continued to take the game on. And I think that was the difference between the two teams today. It was Travis Head was prepared to continue to take the game on and put the opposition under pressure, where in India's situation, there was 29 overs in the middle part of their innings where they only scored 1 boundary. And to me, that really allowed Australia to hold the game and control the game. We all knew that maybe there was a potential possibility of conditions becoming a little bit easier to bat in the second innings, but not dramatically, but a little bit easier. But the way that Head took the game on, I think was quite remarkable. And, he's proven time and time again, he's just a big match player.
Yeah, let's go straight to that. Travis Head, what a player he is. And that will extend Tom Moody's point of what the difference was when we now, in hindsight, look at how India played. We also bring into qualification the nature of the surface, batting first and second. But Rohit Sharma did say at the toss he would have batted first anyway. And I think we can understand that given the trend Anil Kumble speaks of. They started to win the toss and bat first since that game against South Africa on what was also a difficult surface. They repeated that in the semi-final as well as the game against the Netherlands. But right now the moment is for Travis Head, and then we'll move to India's first innings. How good an innings is that, especially from a player who has effectively hit the ground or hit the World Cup less than 3 weeks ago? On the 28th of October, he started with 100 against New Zealand at Dharamshala. He's now won 3 Player of the Match awards, having played 5 games in the tournament, 6 games in the tournament.
I mean, semi-final Player of the Match with the ball, with the bat, on a difficult pitch, and again finals with the catch. I think that certainly changed the momentum, shifted the momentum towards Australia with that catch early on of Rohit Sharma, and then this 100. Let's remember that even in the Test Championship, he got 100 against India and won the Test Championship for Australia. So yes, he's certainly a big match player. The first couple of overs, he looked like he was not going to get a run. I mean, the way he was trying to back away and then trying to hit the ball, it looked as though he's going to get out. So yes, from there on, Tom is absolutely right. He just took the game to the opposition, which meant that at some stage, once they got through that initial phase, once Australia lost those 3 wickets, when they went up to those 80 or 90, suddenly you saw India going on the defensive. There was no slip. When the spinners bowled, yes, there was not much turn, but then there was hardly any sort of pressure put on these 2 batters in terms of saying, okay, we are here looking to take a wicket. So that to me was a bit of a, yes, that's something that you sort of do when you have 240 runs. But he took the game on, even to the spinners. He was waiting for that ball which was pitched in his area and was ready to take on Kuldeep or even a Jadeja. So hats off to him, the way he batted. And in a game where he's just come in, he was injured, not knowing whether he'll participate in this World Cup. But yet Australia believed that once he gets ready, he's going to be certainly someone who can change the course of Australia's innings with the bat. And as soon as he walked in against New Zealand, that changed the whole approach of Australia, the way they went about in the power play. That to me was the biggest difference.
I mean, Tom, we talk about the importance of having the experience to win World Cups, and Australia had 5 members from the playing 11, 6 if you had Pat Cummins, who was a reserve member in 2015. Travis Head wasn't, though. This is a debut World Cup for him, and given everything around his injury status, etc., what do you attribute his instant success to, including such an extraordinary big match performance?
I think it's got to go down to temperament. He's a player that has really matured over the last 2 years in all formats of the game. And one of the real standout things around his game, whether it be in Test cricket or 50-over cricket, is his temperament, but his ownership of the way he plays. He's a little bit unique in the way he plays. He likes to get leg side of the ball. He's devastating through the offside. He frustrates bowlers because he, at times, offers all the stumps, and the bowler thinks that he's in the contest every single time. But he's got a terrific eye, wonderful timer of the ball, and he's got this ability to, put away the fear of failure. He just doesn't concern himself with that, and I think that in itself is an important attribute, not only for his own game, but that then reverberates throughout the team, and the team gain a lot of confidence with a player like that, knowing that he's prepared to take the game on regardless of what the game situation is, what the conditions are, and he's selfless. And I think the way he got out tonight is a really good example of that. He could have easily just gone for the red ink and hit a 1, and then Labuschagne hit another 1, and it's game over, and the World Cup's done. But he played to his brand of cricket, his philosophy, right to the very end. So that list there is a pretty significant list of greats of our game. He's joining that list, and that innings of 137 is as good as any of those innings that are in that list.
Absolutely, and to think it's only the second after Aravinda in 1996 in a run chase just makes it all the more special, given that both Tom Moody and Anil Kumble have lauded the decision. A brave and bold call from Pat Cummins to chase. It's never easy chasing in a World Cup final, and here you have Travis Head sitting in a list of, as Tom rightly points out, some of our greatest ever in this sport. Manas Labuschagne. What about Manas Labuschagne, who almost has become a recurring theme on our show? I know Matthew Hayden has said he doesn't quite like the dynamic that Labuschagne and Smith one after the other offer. There are so many people that seem to want Labuschagne not in their ideal ODI team. But how crucial was the supporting role he played today?
Oh, massive, because after the loss of Steve Smith, because I felt chasing 240, you were not under pressure with regard to the run rate. Although Australia had lost those 3 wickets, it was never the case of run rate. You can't sort of restrict Australia in those 50 overs. So that certainly played or helped someone like Manas's game, him and Steve Smith. So if it was Travis Head getting out early and then Manas and then Steve Smith had to put this partnership after they've lost 3 wickets, that I think would have been a lot more challenging for someone like a Manas Labuschagne.
Yep.
Him and Travis Head was the perfect combination that Australia could have asked for. A left-hander who's really aggressive, taking on the bowlers, and you have Manas who will just keep nudging and then rotating strike. And so it worked perfectly for him. And he's been brilliant. I mean, he was also not part of the squad. He came in as a replacement for a left-arm spinner. And I think, hats off. Australia perhaps were destined to get here and get that trophy because, lots of things have ticked at the right time. Travis Head coming in against New Zealand, Maxwell playing that once in a lifetime kind of an innings against Afghanistan. Today, Manas Labuschagne coming in and getting those runs, who was never in the squad when they started off, and winning the trophy for them. So all of those, I guess, sort of came together at the right time for Australia.
Yeah, it's also very interesting to see how you now look back at things, Tom. And would you call this a masterstroke to back a player like Labuschagne with all the reservations that those against that selection might have had about Anil's point, Smith and Labuschagne playing together? If Australia chase 300 today, suddenly they don't quite have the player that they want at number 4 who can press the game. Do you gamble and hope that, like in the semi-final against South Africa and the final against India, it could come down to a 240 game? Or is that just good foresight, good vision, and well done to the team management for backing Manas Labuschagne?
I think they backed the next best player. I think as simple as that. And they felt Manas Labuschagne's form coming into the World Cup was as good as anyone's form. He had a very good series against South Africa in South Africa where Travis Head broke his hand. And he was sort of one of the leading middle order players there. I don't think it was so much planned they wanted those, Smith and Labuschagne in the same team. But I think, if anything, the surface that was presented today, the surface that Australia played on in Kolkata in the semi-final, you're more than happy to have those pure test players like Smith and Labuschagne batting at 4 and 5, because you need that player that's got that solid defence. You only have to watch Manas Labuschagne, the way he defended against Bumrah and the way he defended against Shami. He was like in test match mode. His bat was as wide as a barn door, and his position at the crease was just like a test match. And that gives you that sense of comfort that, even though they're bowling exceptionally well, he is, showing every part of his technique and bringing that to the fore. So I think it being a game that was not a high-scoring game that we've seen in some of the matches in this World Cup of 300 plus, if not 400, it sort of played into Australia's hands.
Right. What about India's bowling in the second innings, and whether they could have done any more, you think? And this is where we also bring into context how the surface at the Narendra Modi Stadium played in the final. Anil?
I think in the second innings, at least from what we saw, it seemed like it became a lot easier. One thing perhaps India could have done better was I thought they bowled full for a long period of time. Yes, the first 10 overs when there was a lot of swing.
Yeah.
That's when it makes sense for the faster bowlers to run in and bowl fuller. But once once the swing was sort of gone, then it was important that the Indian fast bowlers especially bowled slightly shorter and into the deck, which we didn't see much other than the odd Bumrah delivery and then Siraj to the extent where he came on to bowl. I mean, that was a bit of a sort of a giveaway today.
Yep.
Having seen Siraj bowl, it looks as though that Siraj needs the new ball. if he has to be really effective. Whereas a Shami perhaps can do all the phases, the job for all the phases. But whereas a Siraj somehow gives the impression, at least from what we saw today, that he certainly required the new ball to be a lot more effective. That to me was something that you didn't expect, because I thought on the surface, being that slightly taller bowler, hitting the deck hard, could have certainly helped him. But it felt as though the pitch was slightly better, and of course the Travis Head made it even easier when he was batting. The spinners, I thought there was not much turn. The only thing that you could have perhaps done was having a slip, which they never did throughout the 20 overs of spin. India never had a slip in place, so that to me was a bit surprising. Irrespective of whether you have a turn, whether there's turn or not, you always think that you need to put pressure somewhere. Either have a catcher there or in front of the bat somewhere that you feel that you can put pressure on the batter.
You saw a couple go through slip of the spinners of both Jadeja and Kuldeep. There was nobody there. Rohit Sharma has been very good right through this tournament, including when perhaps India have had a below par score like they did against England in Lucknow to defend. Their bowlers, the challenges Anil speaks of, and Rohit's captaincy in the second innings today, do you sense they could have done more? Do you sense the pressure actually got to the home team of the final?
I don't think the pressure got to the home team. I think the fact that it's always difficult as a captain when you're probably 20 or 30 runs short of where you need to be. So you're forever sort of scrambling. The one decision that we commented on around Shami taking the new ball, we all felt at the halftime mark it was the right decision. But that was my judgment on that was without the analytical evidence to what Shami's record is with the new ball versus what it is when he's coming on as a first change bowler. And that was quite alarming. I think his record is quite remarkable as a first change bowler. I think he's averaging something like 9 or 10 with a ball, where when he's got the new ball in his hand, it's in the 30s. And if I had that information at the time, I would have not suggested that Shami should take the new ball, because what he did show is he didn't have the same control of the swing. And even though you're talking only about 3 or 4 overs difference in receiving the ball, that's a significant amount of time with one of those white kookaburra balls, because the ball really does swing. And Mohammad Siraj has had that new ball in his hand for the last year for India and done a remarkable job with that new ball. And maybe that decision might have been something that was probably not thought through as well as it could have been, given the evidence of what the analysts tell us.
Yeah, very interesting that, because I heard Ricky Ponting on commentary say, yes, Shami would always be dangerous with the form he's in, but it takes Siraj out of the game then. And he came on as a result, as it turns out, as the 5th bowler or the 3rd change. He had really no impact. So out of your 5 bowlers who've all contributed, you're effectively left with 4. Do you sense that also is a reflection of perhaps pressure getting to India? We talked about Jadeja over Surya Kumar Yadav. We're now talking about Shami taking the new ball and Siraj, both bowling out of what they've done in the tournament. It's not overly critical, but it is the fine margins on which perhaps World Cup finals are decided.
No, I would go back to the batting. I thought that move was a bit circumspect. I mean, you're you're worried that what if Surya Kumar Yadav gets out? I don't think you need to have those thoughts when you're setting a target, irrespective of what is happening out there. You still need your best players. You need to give them opportunities. Maybe that was more, my sort of assessment, where India perhaps could have sent a Sky ahead of Jadeja, because he's the better batter, and you expect him to play those 12, 22 overs or whatever, and then give India whatever target that they can. But I think when India bowled, yes, we certainly called out for Shami to open the bowling. But perhaps what Rohit and India thought was the wicket would offer a lot more, and that's one of the reasons he brought in those 2 spinners. And the only way that you could restrict or win this game from an Indian perspective was bowling out Australia. And perhaps Rohit thought that his 4 best bowlers in these conditions were Bumrah, Shami with the new ball, and of course they picked up those 3 wickets, and then the 2 spinners. Unfortunately for India, that didn't work out, and then Siraj coming at the back end of all of these 4 bowlers finishing first towards the 20th over, he became ineffective, and by then Australia had got that almost 150 by then, so that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I mean, also there were some 5 wides, there were things that suddenly made a 240 target look a lot lesser very quickly, as against England, where they didn't give much away, and after the first 8 or 9 overs, it suddenly became a run-a-ball sort of game. But I think we can go back to the first innings as a key period of play, Tom, and you're the one who brought it up at our halftime show first, about we understand why India would have chosen to, I wouldn't say shut shop, but certainly be extremely cautious, given what they know of their lower order and the fact that they've, in the final, lost 2 out of their top 4 for single digits. But as we look back at the eventual result, did that in some ways give Australia the exact feeling they wanted? Yeah, India are nervous, India are worried, India are fearing failure here. They want to just take this game deep. And at that point, someone had to probably take, maybe a KL Rahul had to try and pose some kind of counter-attack to put Australia off. Otherwise, as it turns out, that innings didn't really go anywhere anyway.
Oh, without a doubt. It enabled Australia to still have the hands on the reins. And that's not the cricket that India has played throughout this tournament. They have not allowed the opposition to have any say in the outcome of the game. But what it did do is allow Australia to stay in the contest and hold the game under their terms. And the point I made at the beginning, just the 1 boundary in 29 overs, that is just an alarming statistic. And I'm not saying by any means it was the most easiest time to bat, but you're talking about some of the best batters in the world. And it just takes a slight change of mindset, communication between those players on screen around, okay, who do we feel comfortable taking down? We need to try to search for a boundary. Even if it's every second over, we get a boundary every 2 overs just to keep our momentum. So we're sort of bossing this game under our terms, where Australia were, sitting in cruise control with a ball in hand, and Pat Cummins could make the necessary moves, bowl Marsh for a couple of overs, bowl Travis Head for a couple of overs, get those overs out the way, and the game just drifted from India's perspective, and that drifting of that game probably cost them 30 or 40 runs.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the other side to it. You know the challenges of your longish tail. You also know the form of your bowlers. So even if you get to a score like 240, which you said at halftime, Anil, is still defendable.
Yes.
So I can see why Rahul and Kohli would have taken out all risk at that point and just tried to take the game deep. But do you now sense that there was a case to go harder, or can you really not blame them, given the challenges of the surface as well in the first inning?
Yeah, it is. I also said at the half-stage that the only way that India could defend this 240 or win this game was if you get Travis Head, David Warner and Mitch Marsh out, because those 3 were the most dangerous. And then, of course, Travis Head proved that, with this 130, it was impossible for India to defend that. Yes, at that stage, Kohli getting out, that was a timing, bad timing from an Indian perspective, because at the 28th over mark, if Kohli had batted till the 35th, then I thought the last 15 overs, you could have easily got another 100 runs. And that perhaps was the plan. And Kohli getting out certainly didn't work out. And after that, I thought the decision not to send Surya in. Of course, India has played Jadeja up the order. That was mostly in test matches. So that again, same thing happened in the test championship as well, where Jadeja came in ahead in the batting lineup. So that to me says that, look, we have a specific role for Sky, which is to go after, or he'll only bat 12 overs towards the end. But yes, he can bat 12 overs in the end, when the score is 260 or 240, but not when it is 120. So you need to sort of give him that faith, or you can't really always have things going to script. So when it's not going to script, you certainly need your best player to be moving ahead and batting at his original position.
Yeah, I mean,
can I just add something to that,
please.
Raunak? Yeah, just the point around that as well is that I can understand holding Sky back if the surface is one Cuddy Stadium, a flat surface where the back 10 overs, someone like Sky can score 50, 60, 70 off his own bat. But when you're playing on a surface that is a little bit challenging, you nearly make it impossible for an impact player like him to have an impact in the last 10 overs. So if there's an opportunity to get him in when there's 15 plus overs, it enables him just to get familiar with the pace of the game and to get into the contest, and then hopefully has the same, impact in the back 10. So it made it very difficult for him, if that was their thinking, to suddenly pull off a miracle in the last 10 overs with the conditions the way they were.
Yep, there you go. Food for thought on the decision-making that has perhaps contributed to India being second best on the day, but nothing should be taken away from Australia's bowlers. And I fear for what could have been the reaction had Australia batted first, and had the rougher end of the conditions, given all the talk that seems to be polarized across media and the world about pitches, favouring the home team and whatnot. Funny enough, the spinners didn't really have as much of a say. They bowled steady, yes. The wickets were all taken by the seamers. Pat Cummins saved his best for this day. Mitchell Starc got reverse swing. But the assessment of the surface and what, as it turns out, ended up being Australia's seamers on what should have ideally been a surface that would have assisted spin, you'd think, for the final?
Yeah, look, I don't know what the influence, if there was any influence in the way the surface was being so dry and bare, whether that was just the surface that was prepared and, that was just what it was. But to me, India needed to play on the best possible batting wicket, because I feel man for man, they're a better side than Australia on a very flat, one-day surface. They've got incredible batting power, and they've got a bowling unit that has the ability and has proven to have the ability to be able to bowl well in those conditions, particularly in India. I think, if anything, that surface favoured Australia coming into the contest, and obviously Australia are brave enough to make that decision to bowl first and had the response of the wicket.
Interesting that, because if we try and just quickly flash back to the games played at Ahmedabad, England still got 280 odd, Australia got 280 odd against England against New Zealand. India-Pakistan was different. It was hard for Pakistan batting first. They got bundled out quickly. South Africa-Afghanistan was a pretty sort of low-scoring game. But to Tom's point now, does it feel like perhaps, give me your assessment of the surface itself, but also does it feel like India's better chances would have been on a surface that wouldn't have changed so much?
Oh yes, India's certainly better off having a flat deck. I mean, we've seen that throughout the competition. India is the better side, bowling-wise, batting-wise, when the conditions are perfect. So we saw that at the Wankhede Stadium, where India's batters just, were certainly taking the New Zealand bowlers to sword. So I mean, yes, the surface was challenging. You don't want that kind of a situation going into a final. You don't know, what the surface is going to do. Having a dry surface in India, generally you expect that everywhere you go. Yes. It's not that you're going to get a damp surface or a surface with plenty of grass.
But a used surface in the semi-final, Anil, Wankhede is still allowed for 300 plus runs for both teams.
Yes, I mean, it was a good batting surface, so you expect the ball to come onto the bat in a one-day game. If at all, with two new balls, you expect that the fast bowlers will get some swing in the first 5-6 overs that they bowl. But this was a surface where, of course, Indian batters, we saw the first 10 overs. Rohit was outstanding again today.
Yes.
I mean, it's just that India lost wickets. I mean, we have to give credit to the way Australians bowled on this surface. If you look at even the 5 games that have happened in Ahmedabad, it's not been like batters have just come in blindfolded, just hit through the line. They've had to play well and score those runs. Other than that first game where both Conway and Rachin Ravindra made the pitch look really, really good. Perhaps with the kind of batting flow or fluency that they had on that particular day. But generally in Ahmedabad, it's a surface where you end up scoring 260, 270. India fell short by 30 runs, and if they had perhaps got one more wicket early on, things would have been different.
Yeah, I mean, they have managed to score 300 plus on what has been a difficult surface, as we saw against South Africa at the Eden Gardens.
Yes.
And of course, we know nothing about any preparation on the pitch to perhaps favour the home side. But if there was any, would you say it's backfired?
No, I don't think there was any.
This was all right. This pitch was fine for a World Cup final?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just that India didn't perform to their best with the bat.
And Australia
obviously performed their best or kept their best to last with the ball, because they haven't been really good throughout the tournament with the ball. I mean, Australia have struggled, other than the odd occasion where they have come through, but not against the bigger teams where they have struggled with the ball. And today it was a different Australian bowling attack, which certainly made inroads and picked up those early wickets, and India couldn't recover from that.
Yeah. All right, Tom, you mentioned it in your opening comments regarding Pat Cummins and his ODI form, the fact that he is an ODI captain. This achievement, though, you touched upon it in your opening thoughts, but if you can extend on what this achievement does for Pat Cummins, his place in the history of Australian World Cup cricket, given all that you know of the journey of this team, where I don't think they were strong favourites going. They were always dangerous, but weren't strong favourites going into the tournament, certainly not after the first two games.
Yeah, look, absolutely. After the first two games, a lot of people were writing them off and thinking they weren't even semi-final chances. But, there's a lot of question marks, because at that stage there was still Travis Head, out of the side and trying to recover from a fracture in the hand. And the team is still trying to find some form. There's still question marks over a number of players. We talked about Labuschagne and whether he fitted into the, to the setup. There was also the couple of incidences where you had Maxwell fall off a golf cart. He was out for a game. We had Mitch Marsh go home because of a family bereavement. So there was a number of little challenges Australia had on this journey. And to captain through those choppy waters, I thought the way that Pat Cummins carried himself in the media, the way he carried himself on the field, from the beginning of that journey to the end, he just grew and grew and grew as a leader, and the way he conducted himself and how he applied his tactical nous on the field of play. And I thought tonight was sort of the crowning glory of that journey. And I think a lot of people in Australia that have had doubts over Pat Cummins and his role as captain in ODI cricket have been silenced very quickly, because what he has done is shown that he is a genuine leader. He's a learner, and there's no question of his quality as a cricketer. So he's ticked every single box, and he's brought home a significant trophy to Australian soils in a very, very tough tournament in India.
Well, let's not forget his contributions as a lower order batter, just holding fort when the unthinkable was unfolding at the other end. But you can understand the challenges for a bowling captain. The game has not seen many. The game has also only seen two ever lift World Cups in Kapil Dev and Imran Khan as bowling all-rounders. This achievement is special for someone like Pat Cummins?
Yeah, it is, because we sat here after the first couple of games where we were pretty critical about how Pat Cummins went about using his resources in the team. And also, let's be honest, Australia have been a bit scratchy till this game.
Yes.
They haven't put their best foot forward, whether they've had their full resources available because of what Tom mentioned with Mitch Marsh, Travis Head, and Maxwell, but still, there's enough talent on the bench where they could have put a better performance. But they were pretty scratchy right throughout the tournament, scraped through, and who knows? Semi-finals could have been different. They wouldn't have played South Africa if they had lost to Afghanistan. So all of those questions are there. But then to come through all of that with aplomb and then coming in and winning the World Cup is something really special. So yes, hats off to Pat Cummins in the way he's shown his leadership and the resilience, and also believing that his team can come through this period, because it takes a bit of courage after having been at the non-strikers end on both occasions, when the team had to chase down 250 or 290 against Afghanistan, being 91 for 7, and then against South Africa, 213 in a semi-final, we knew that even this pitch is not going to be that easy. It's not a Wankhede pitch, but you would have to put in a really good batting performance. He came through with flying colours.
Well done to Pat Cummins then, and I would be amiss if I don't, at least because I like you and Tom Moody so much, get you to mention something about the coaching staffs and their achievements, because I know Andrew McDonald also cops a fair bit of scrutiny in whatever happened in the aftermath of Justin Langer. Daniel Vittori has joined him, Andy Flowers there as a consultant, George Bailey's there as the selector too. But a word on the support staff, Tom, and their achievement?
Yeah, look, it's a good point. I'm pleased you brought this up because, as Anil knows, that it's coaching can be a thankless task at times, and the work that's done behind the scenes, not only by the head coach Andrew McDonald or Rahul Dravid, in India's case, is significant. There's a lot of things that happens behind the scenes. The people that he surrounds himself with, the quality that they've surrounded, well, let's speak about Andrew McDonald, the quality that he surrounded himself with, the likes of Andy Flower, who's a very, very experienced international and franchise coach. You've got Dan Vittori, who's a good friend of Cricket Info, and someone's got a wealth of experience as well. But bringing people like that together is all part of that journey. It brings a solid foundation for the team to work from, and they'll enjoy this success as much as the players, and they should enjoy it. They'll still remain in the background because that's where they belong, because this is the players' moment, and it always will be the players' moment. But, they will be remembering this moment for many, many years to come.
Yeah, well, Dan couldn't enjoy it as a player, Tom, but the minute he got into an Aussie dugout, it happened.
Yeah, exactly. He just needed to jump the big vast gap of water between New Zealand and Australia, and he's found a trophy.
Yeah, just as much as Tom mentioned about the backroom staff of the Australian team, I think credit should go to the Indian backroom 100%. Staff as well. I mean, with Rahul Dravid and the rest of the team that he has, even for India coming into this tournament, there were three major concerns, three major injuries for three key players: Jasprit Bumrah, Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul. Whether can you get them ready for the World Cup? All of them, even Shreyas Iyer, the first game that he played was the World Cup, so he couldn't even play the Asia Cup. KL Rahul missed out on the couple of matches in the Asia Cup, and then he came through with that wonderful 100 against Pakistan. So, in that sense, not just this set of backroom staff, but NCA and a whole lot of physios, trainers.
Don't forget the chairman of selectors, another good friend of...
I know, yes, another good friend of Cricket Info, yes. And, it's a combination of all of that. They'll, of course, be very, very disappointed that, eventually you couldn't win. But the kind of effort that goes
this has exceeded expectations of a lot of Indian fans, even the most optimistic ones. This level of dominance, the fact that India could manage without perhaps their most irreplaceable player in Hardik Pandya.
Yes, if today Hardik Pandya was available, I'm sure an R. Ashwin perhaps could have been thought through, because India, even with the surface that was there, I mean, there was some talk yesterday that Ashwin could perhaps come in, but no way that Ashwin could have come in with only two seamers, and there was absolutely no chance. So the only way that Ashwin could have played was if Hardik was around and you had three fast bowlers.
Yeah, I guess, Anil, you can't help but just lend your heart out to Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma. The legacy they would leave, who knows if they still have another World Cup in them. It seems highly unlikely that either of those two players will have another 50 over men's World Cup. Tendulkar did play close to his 40s, so we don't rule anything out. But they gave it everything. Rohit's brand of cricket at the top, Kohli's volume of runs. Between them, they couldn't possibly have done more, one would think.
Yeah, outstanding. I mean, from the two of them, two senior pros had to put their hand up and then lead this team together in that leadership group. I mean, Rohit was exceptional as a captain, as a leader, as someone who walked the talk and led from the front. I mean, even today, despite, yes, in hindsight, perhaps he'll be thinking, maybe just a single. But the way he went about taking the bowlers on right from ball one was outstanding. Yes, it's sad that the two of them couldn't hold the trophy at the end today, but those two players certainly stood up for India right in every moment. It was Rohit giving India the starts, and then Virat ensuring that India got the score that they eventually reached. 300 plus with batting almost 35, 40 overs through the innings, and to get to 50 ODI hundreds is a massive achievement. So yes, in all of that, I don't think any of that would count, but for having that World Cup trophy in your hand. So yes, certainly there'll be disappointments.
Frame that because of how they played in the league stage, Tom. The best team to not win the World Cup, or was that reserved for you boys in 1996?
Look, I don't go with that sort of best team not to win. At the end of the day, the World Cup in any sport is about you need to bring your best right through the final series, regardless of what you do in the group stage. And that's the nature of the beast. It's not like the IPL where if you finish top, you get second chance and all that. I just think at the end of the day, that's the charm of World Cup. It's cutthroat, and there's no bigger pressure than playing on a World Cup stage. And Australia held their nerve, and they were the best team in the 2023 ICC World Cup.
Absolutely. Not disputing that at all, right? Just having a right moment. But I can't help but think, if you are entrusted with the responsibility of drawing a map forward for the Indian team, they seem like the best Indian team, and yet they fall short on the day of the final. Can't help but think that they did not replace Hardik Pandya with a like for like. The flexibility that you speak of, Anil, is if India had that seam bowling all-rounder. India don't have all-rounders. And somewhere does that also play into how KL Rahul bats with 3 early wickets in a final. He doesn't enjoy the depth. It perhaps plays into Jadeja coming ahead of Surya Kumar Yadav. Somewhere that is still an area that India need to figure out, don't they?
Yeah, India has been dominant in this World Cup, yes, other than this game where they were outplayed by Australia on the day. But if you look at what we have spoken, even before the start of the World Cup, the importance of batters' ability to come in and bowl a few overs, and bowlers' ability to come and bat a bit. Yes, there's no replacement for a like-to-like Hardik because India doesn't have it. So that's the biggest challenge. That's something that you will have to have India groom, more so in a T20 World Cup, because T20 is all about batters having that few overs, giving you those options, and the depth till about 10 or 9. And that's something that, with the new IPL rule of an impact player rule, that negates that option or opportunity for batters to come in and bowl, it doesn't encourage batters to take up bowling. So that's the biggest challenge. So India will have to find certainly a couple of all-rounders, whether you have Jadeja is there as the spin all-rounder, Ashwin is there as bowler who can really bat, but you need certainly a fast bowling all-rounder. You don't have too many.
Tom, I wonder what the challenges would be if you were running that plan, given that this is still a very strong team, but it was an excellent team with the resources that were available, whether there is a need to have more resources or a different kind of resource to add the ideal balance?
Well, there's 4 years to work on it. And that's I suppose that's the gravity of today's match, is that we know that these opportunities only come along every 4 years. So yeah, I'm sure that India, like every other country, will be planning now to be trying to work out, well, who's going to be around in 4 years' time? How can we fill the various voids in our side? And there's no question you need to have that option and a number of options, both with spinning all-rounders that can bat in your top 7 and pace bowling all-rounders that can bat there. But it is, with the volume of cricket that's played around the world, it's a very, very tough skill to be able to maintain, because purely the pressure it puts on you physically and mentally, because you're constantly in the game. But I'm sure India, with the resources they've got and the talent and passion they've got for the game, will find a way. And I'm sure there'll be more Hardik Pandyas out there in 4 years' time.
The end of the road for any of these players, or shall we not pass any judgment on that? It's hard to think someone like a Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli would have it in them to want to give it another 4 more years.
But it's a bit
Still
too
good
soon.
enough, certainly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's a bit too soon for you to sort of start looking too far ahead now. I mean, this is a time where, yes, there are disappointments of not having been able to win this final, but you still need to celebrate the way India played throughout this competition. Yes, you have to doff your hat off to the Aussies for yet again proving that in a final they're a better team, and deservedly so. But I don't think you should start thinking too far ahead. Maybe it's time for the selectors, like Tom mentioned, to sit down and say, okay, now can we put a map for the next 4 years, and then look at what kind of quality players that you need to look for, whether you need a fast bowling all-rounder, then who's that, identify, how can you give them opportunities. And with regard to the senior players, I think they played by the year. I don't think you can sort of say, okay, I'm going to definitely play in 4 years' time. I don't think any senior player in this squad, I don't think will be even thinking that far ahead.
I mean, there is still a Champions Trophy, so the next ICC 50 over 4 men's event is going to be in 2 years' time. So there are plenty of things to do, but there's a T20 World Cup next year. Any word from your good friend Rahul Dravid on whether he's interested in a few more years?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have him, hold this trophy. He's worked really hard, and it's not been easy. It's not easy being an India coach. You're on the road all the time, 365 days, 24/7. The focus is on you, it's I don't know yet. So it all depends on how he wakes up tomorrow morning and then decides, because I guess it's his decision, and of course the BCCI will take a call on who the next coach would be, but I'm sure he'll be pretty satisfied with the way things went about. The icing on the cake wasn't there today.
Yep, yeah, the beauty of sport, the uncertainty of it, and just as those comments from Anil and Tom were coming in, it was then that Pat Cummins lifted a World Cup trophy as an Australian captain for the 6th time in the nation's history. For the first time, Pat Cummins himself, presented by Greg Barclay, the ICC chairman, and of course the Prime Minister of India in attendance in a stadium in his name. So that was nice to see. And he lifts the World Cup, gets the feel of it for the second time, even though he didn't play the final. The likes of David Warner, Tom, Steve Smith, Glenn Maxwell, Josh Hazlewood, Mitchell Starc, they joined the great Tom Moody as 2-time World Cup winners. What does that feel like?
I don't think my name belongs alongside their names for what they've done to Australian cricket over a long period of time. But it's obviously I had the great privilege to be involved in World Cup cricket over my career, even though it was sort of in and out from time to time. But they'll go down. The names you mention as some of Australia's great players and winners, and that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, we play this sport to have that team success. All the individual accolades are wonderful, but really the real memories that last forever are those team moments. And they are very fortunate now to have 2 World Cups that are memories that they'll have for a lifetime.
How do you rate the achievement of this batch of players, Tom, given you were actively involved with a number of them across the T20 franchise coaching circuit, given that these 2 World Cups in 15 and 23 have come at a time where most of these players are playing 3 formats, are playing a hell of a lot of franchise cricket too, not something that a number of the double, triple World Cup winners enjoyed through the 90s and early 2000s?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible achievement, because just the volume of cricket these players play. We talked about the number of players that play all 3 formats that are in that Australian team and in that Indian team for that matter. So for them to have the resilience, both physically and mentally, is an achievement in itself. To maintain the hunger, the form, the consistency of all that, and the pressures that come with being an international player, whether that be personal pressures, away from family and friends for long periods of time, So there's a lot of sacrifice that's made, and moments like what was just witnessed, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, with Pat Cummins lifting the trophy and the players enjoying that moment, it makes all that hard work and that sacrifice worthwhile.
Well done to Australia then, champions of the 2023 Men's World Cup. The beauty of sport lies in its unpredictability. India found that out in what was a defining moment in '83 at Lord's when they beat a fancied West Indian team, changed the course, you could say, of the next few decades of Indian cricket. It also just goes to show, Anil Kumble, that World Cups are hard to win, even when you're a great team. Australia have won 6. They are some World Cup team.
Yes, it's not easy. It's an emotion for you because once in 4 years you get an opportunity to try and get to that final. Getting to a final itself is not easy. Once you get there, you need to win all the key moments, which Australia did. They got to the final. India marched dominantly to the final, but unfortunately they were not, they were beaten by a better side, which put up a better show on the day.
Yep.
So yes, that's how the World Cup goes, and India will have to sort of wait another 4 years for a World Cup, a 50-over World Cup. Those are things that you sort of learn and take the learnings and then move forward.
Yep. Well, what a tournament we have had. It's been a long one. It's been a good one, you would think. The highs of Glenn Maxwell has perhaps played the best ODI innings of all time. We've also seen the most unexpected title defense from England. We've seen a record number of 300-plus scores. We've seen a record number of hundreds in a Men's World Cup individually. Travis Head capping that off with one in the final. So as I quickly say, ask for a final verdict on the World Cup from Anil Kumble and Tom Moody. Maybe I can ask you for your standout moment. I mean, we've seen perhaps the greatest bunch of Indian fast bowling in time. If you had to pick, what do you remember this World Cup for, Anil?
I think if you want to look at the Indian fast bowling one, I would certainly like to pick the Mohammad Shami. All the fifers that he picked up was outstanding. I mean, the spell that he bowled against England, the 7-fer in the semi-final, 5-fer, the previous game against Sri Lanka. So in that sense, it certainly stands out. The bowling effort, bowlers win your tournaments. And today Australia's bowlers won them the tournament. Yes, of course, Travis Head got those runs, but literally put the brakes on India. So in that sense, the bowling performance by this Indian team was totally dominating.
Yep. Tom Moody, standout moments from this World Cup?
A few. Afghanistan,
yes.
The way they played and stamped their authority in this World Cup, I thought was, a wonderful show to watch. I felt obviously the way that India played to win 10 in a row, their dominance was quite extraordinary. We were all thinking about how can you beat India because they were playing so well. And finally, I think, not finally, one more, Maxwell's 200, just extraordinary. I don't think, I'd hate to say this because you don't expect, these things to happen again, but it'd be very unlikely we see an innings like that again. And finally, to see Virat Kohli reach 50 hundreds is just something that is an extraordinary achievement by an individual.
Yep. I mean, you just pick it up, right, as you now try and recollect a month and a half of one-day international cricket that breathed life into the format. You would almost think it was forgettable ODI cricket between the last World Cup and this. The world had to undergo the difficulties of a pandemic. We've had a lot of T20 World Cup cricket. We've had a lot of World Test Championship cricket. We've had a lot of franchise cricket. There was a charm to the ODI World Cup. Kohli's record-breaking achievement with the aggregate runs in a World Cup, the 50 ODI hundreds, the story of Afghanistan, the Dutch doing themselves proud, Maxwell smashing the fastest 100, Pakistan chasing against Sri Lanka in a record World Cup chase, Pakistan beating New Zealand after they scored 400, all sorts of things that would be remembered. And the ebbs and flows of the one-day game. Is the format still alive? Yeah,
it is. It is certainly alive. The only thing that I would like to see is not too many of these 300 plus 400 scores, because that's something that...
Well, our surfaces are taking care of it.
I know, but
yeah.
I think you still want, one thing that perhaps could be looked at is the use of the reverse swing coming back in. When you need that, it certainly helps the bowlers and then makes the game even more closer and more interesting. So I'm keen that instead of the 2 balls, you sort of come back to that one ball. Or if you want to change that at the end of 30 overs, give the option for the captain to choose one of the balls and then ensure that you at least have a 35 over ball by the end of the 50th over rather than a 25 over ball.
All right. Anil Kumble has put his ICC Cricket Committee hat back on. You know, he left that one a few days back. But Tom Moody, quick final comments from you. Future of the format in safe hands? Or future of World Cup cricket in safe hands?
Yeah, I think this 5 weeks or however long it's been has been, it's been exciting. We've seen a lot of great things. I think the game needs to be reshaped, the 50-over game. The things I would suggest is to turn it into 40 overs and just one white ball. I think times have changed. 50 overs is a very long time. We need to make sure that we keep the audience engaged with the game, and I think 40 overs is absolutely perfect with just the one ball.
All right. Well, there you have it from 2 players that spent a large part of their career playing 50-over cricket, test cricket. But what a wonderful tournament it's been. We didn't get to see a run out of the non-striker, but we saw a timed out. I don't want to not mention that before we leave things going. But that's, I guess, where we leave it. Tom Moody's having a bit of a laugh. We'll remember Angelo Matthews for the years to come in our cricket quizzes. But this is where I extend my sincerest appreciation to you, Tom Moody, a true friend, perhaps the dearest friend of Cricinfo, and I look forward to seeing you again, perhaps in no more than a few weeks' time. We have an auction to cover, Tom.
Excellent. I look forward to that. Yeah, no, it's an absolute privilege, Raunak and Anil. I always enjoy working with you guys, and it's always a learning experience, and hopefully our audiences have enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, likewise, Tom. It's been fantastic to work with you, Raunak, and the rest of the team here. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic to cover the World Cup from this studio here. But it's a learning experience, and yeah, I hope the viewers certainly enjoyed our insights into the game, and really look forward to working with all of you again.
Anil Kumble, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. It wasn't the fairy tale ending that perhaps you were expecting from an Indian point of view, but it always made for good conversation. It is truly the beauty of sport, and this is where I say thank you. We tried our best to make sense of the World Cup without all the noise, and simply focus on why things happen in cricket matches, and leave you with some light moments and some of the stories of what's been a fascinating tournament. So on behalf of the entire panel of anchors, presenters, analysts, producers, right here on Maruti Suzuki Arena Presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back very soon. Download the mobile app. There'll be plenty written inside in the aftermath of what's an extraordinary achievement for Australian cricket, for Pat Cummins and his men, for a unprecedented sixth World Cup title. Australia are champions, and this is where we say goodbye.
Stunning looks, then swift,